Hello, so today I'm going to show you how to calculate the yearly total sales for each media and how to create and format a pivot table report. So first, to calculate the yearly total sales for each media, you have to go to cell O4 under total sales and enter the formula equals sum, open parentheses, then drag the sales from January to December, then close parentheses, and once you press enter, you should be able to get a total sale of $8,663 for the newspaper media. So now you can use the fill handle to copy down the formula for the other media. Once you've done that, you notice that there's an error code indicating formula omits adjacent cells. And it's completely okay to ignore this error since it doesn't really affect the worksheet. Now, before we create a pivot table, you need to know what a pivot table is. And just like a table, data to be used in a pivot table must be organized in rows and columns, and also avoiding blank rows. So once a pivot table is created, a pivot table report can be made as well. This report simply allows the worksheet data to be put into small concise reports, simplifying data analysis. So with that in mind, we can begin to create our pivot table report on a separate sheet that shows the media, annual cost, and total sales. So to do this, you just have to first select the whole table of information, go to Insert at the top, then Pivot Table. Now you'll see a dialog box that looks just like this. So you can also see here that you can choose where you want the pivot table report to be placed. And in this exercise, I'm going to put the pivot table report into a new worksheet. Click OK, and now you're directed to a new worksheet. And you can see at the right side that there's this thing called pivot table field list, and that's where we're going to choose the information that we want in our pivot table report. So like I've said earlier, we want a report that shows the media, annual cost, and the total sales. So all you have to do now is select media, annual cost, and total sales from the field list, and you've got your pivot table report. And if you want to make your pivot table look more colorful or interesting, something like that, you can format it by clicking on any cell within the table and go up to design, and at the right you can choose any pivot table style you want. And now that you've gotten an idea of how a pivot table is created, we can create another one on a separate sheet that shows the category, annual cost, and total sales. So first we have to go back to sheet 1 where we have all our information and select table. Now we have to go up to Insert, Pivot Table, and then a dialog box shows up again. And click OK, and you're directed to a new sheet. Now at the right side of the worksheet under the pivot table field list, you have to select the information we want to put in our report, which is the category, annual cost, and the total sales. Once you've gotten both of your pivot table reports done, you can label the sheet that they're in so you won't get confused. So here I'm going to rename sheet 4 into media pivot table and sheet 5 into category pivot table. So that's all there is for this exercise. Now you know how to calculate the yearly total sales for each media and how to create and format a pivot table report.